The Niners' biggest threat in the NFC West just had a procedure that's usually done to women in labor. How serious is the Matthew Stafford back injury? Plus, the 49ers head into joint practice with the Denver Broncos tomorrow. Just what do we want to see out of those sessions? We'll get into all that and more on today's Gold Standard Podcast. What is good, everybody? Welcome to the original Gold Standard Podcast. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. He is Levin Black. Levin, how you doing on this fine Wednesday?
Oh, I am Van Dam-tastic.
There we go. Good. Finally, a little enthusiasm from you. And I don't want to start the show on a downer, but we are going to be talking about an injury situation in the NFC West with Matthew Stafford. We'll also talk about the Niners' own injury situations, which are, scary as well. Plus, joint practice with the Denver Broncos coming up. So a lot of things to get to on today's show. First up, let's start with the Stafford injury issue. Because, look, the Rams are the Niners' biggest competition in the NFC West. An injury to their starting quarterback obviously affects the 49ers. And for the record, I think the 49ers were going to give the Rams a run for their money in the NFC West anyway, even with a healthy Matthew Stafford. But we got news today, Levin, that Stafford had an epidural several weeks ago because he's dealing with an aggravated disc in his back. He's 37 years old. What do you think is going on with the Matthew Stafford situation?
I think they're in for a long season because if you're having that in training camp already, once you're getting hit, and we know Stafford is the type, I would say he's probably at the top of the list now of kind of like the Big Ben style of quarterbacking, where I'm going to stand here, I'm going to hold it as long as I can, and then I'm going to take a massive hit as I'm releasing to try to get as much as I can. Like, he takes more hits than anybody else. He will hold that ball until the last second and rely on the talent that made him the number one overall pick all those years ago. So the chances of him staying healthy throughout the season, very slim. And if your back is messed up, that will mess with your throwing mechanics because you literally twist and torque your back while you're throwing. So it's something that I don't think that the Rams are in for a very good season because I don't see how Stafford makes it through the season.
Now, I want to be not fair, but I want to be up to date. And Pro Football Talk does have an item that says Matthew Stafford is on track to do on-field work later this week. According to the article, Stafford is on track to resume working out and expected to do on-field work in the coming days. What is on-field work? I don't know. Is that going through a full practice? I have no idea.
No, let's throw it on the side.
I've also been talking with Jake Ellenbogen, who's the Rams content creator that I trust more than any other. He is saying that this is not a big deal, that he's not worried at all. I don't know, Levin. It's a back injury. Stafford is 37 years old. Back injuries are, they don't typically get better. Yeah, I don't know that this is one you can quote unquote manage. I think there's some hopium maybe going on with Jake, who I like and I respect his work, but I don't think that this is a nothing burger like the Rams are trying to make it seem. I think there's something to this.
To say you're not worried at all when your quarterback is missing training camp practices due to a back injury that required an injection into his essentially spine.
Yeah,
no, that would be massive homerism. Like, you have to be worried. You can think, I don't think it's going to affect him going into the season. There's enough time. But to say you're not worried, that is having rose-colored glasses on. That's having the blinders on. You have to be worried in this scenario.
And Johnny Dell of the Johnny Dell Football Academy, who will do a show with me tomorrow on this network, says Jake is good. He's got sources. I agree, and I don't deny that Jake's sources are telling him that Stafford's going to be fine. But you said it. Like, an epidural is them taking a needle and sticking it into your spine. If you're a parent, there's a good chance you're familiar with epidurals. My wife had two of them, really one, because the other one didn't work.
And both were your fault, right?
it's a procedure. Like, I'll never forget watching my wife in the delivery room, when they do that, they have people come and they hold you down basically, and they take this giant needle. They don't even like the men to be able to see the needle because so many guys see the needle and pass out because it's so big. It's not a nothing procedure, okay? They are taking a needle and sticking it into your spine. They don't do that for ha-has. They don't do that for minor injuries. They don't do that, for no reason. So I don't know. I think this. If I were a Rams fan, I would be very scared. And I'll be very scared for another reason, Levin, because they have already begun the Jimmy Garoppolo PR hype machine. Ian Rappaport tweeted today the Rams remain confident Stafford will be ready to begin the regular season. But as was clear during yesterday's joint practice with the Cowboys, they love what Jimmy Garoppolo brings as his backup. They love it, Levin.
Yeah. And consider the source there. So, he's being fed by some kind of team representative, probably. It's one of those things that I think you also have to take into account who it is that has this going on. If this was Patrick Mahomes, who hasn't really had major injuries, I wouldn't worry quite as much as I would literally the guy that's always hurt. Matthew Stafford plays hurt. Now, I would say he's one of the toughest, if not the toughest quarterbacks in the league, because even going back to Detroit, he was always playing with injuries that a lot of quarterbacks would not be playing with. But he does constantly get hurt, and it seems like his body doesn't heal very quickly because every season that I can remember with him, he has had some kind of injury, and it's been sometimes shoulder, sometimes involving his ankles, different things, but they always seem to linger all season long and end up causing him to be hobbled in some way where he's less than 100% the entire rest of the season. So to have this in training camp, just looking at the history of the person that it has to be something that you sit there and say, well, this is likely to do something to him throughout the season. Whether it means missing games or not, I don't know, but it has to at least affect him.
And what do I say about Jimmy Garoppolo? When he was the 49ers backup quarterback, you can't have a backup quarterback that always gets hurt because then you need a good third quarterback. And that is exactly the situation the Rams are in. Whether Stafford starts the year or not, if he has to miss any time, Jimmy G's your backup. And what do we know about Jimmy G? The man gets hurt. Now, like I said, this is a 49ers show, and I think the 49ers were going to give the Rams all they could handle this year in terms of the division. And I think the Niners could have won the division even if Matthew Stafford had no back injury whatsoever. But he does have something going on with his back. And for as good as it could be now, and as good as it might be leading up to week one, we know all it might take is one hit or one twist or one anything. And the Rams could be in a world of hurt. And I'm surprised that, I guess I'm not surprised, but, they're trying to keep it cool and put out the fire right now. And I don't believe it, quite frankly.
Yeah, the analogy I was going to use, because you titled this, at least here on what we're recording on live, does the back injury open the door to the 49ers in the NFC West? I was going to say, you can't open what's already open.
Right.
But the back injury might be removing the hinges so that there's no door left. It remains open.
I mean, let's just be real. Whether the Rams defense takes a leap forward, a lot of people expect it to or not. If Jimmy Garoppolo is your quarterback, there is no game on their schedule that they can't lose. That's just the back, and that's the truth of it all. So we have to wait and see with all of that. But the things that I am hearing coming out of Rams people, and this is just public stuff, not like I'm not saying I have sources or anything, but the way that they are treating this, how it's like no big deal and don't worry about it. To me, it sounds like a lot of hopium. And so it's yet another thing, Levin, that I think for the 49ers that seems to be in their favor, including the schedule stuff, including all of that stuff. This is just another thing that you look at the 49ers season and say, hey, there's a real runway here for you to get back to the playoffs and maybe back to the top of the NFC.
It's a runway would be a good way to put it. There's no obstacle in your way for being able to land this thing with the division title. That's what the 49ers are staring at. The path that they have right now with Stafford getting hurt, with Seattle moving on from their quarterback and replacing him with somebody that's probably worse. It's never been, I think, as easy looking on paper going into a season that we can remember. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you go back to the 90s maybe, early 2000s maybe, but like this is about as easy as it's been for the 49ers in terms of looking at the division and the likelihood of them winning the division because the schedule is so crazy easy, and because the only team that we thought was pretty equal on paper has their quarterback with a back injury
Hmm?
in training camp.
When you say that out loud, like, it sounds so simple. We're all like, well, I got the epidural weeks ago and he's going to be okay. He's got a 37-year-old quarterback who's not mobile with a back injury,
Yeah.
who threw less touchdowns than Brock Purdy last year, by the way, or the same amount of touchdowns as Brock Purdy, scored less overall when he was healthy, quote unquote. So we'll see. We'll see how it all works out. But I agree. The door was already open. And now if Stafford misses any time, I mean, you know, the irony of all ironies would be if the Rams somehow beat the 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. Could you stomach that if that actually happened?
It would depend on what happens in the games immediately before. They're coming off a loss. It's going to make it harder. But if that happens and they're still in decent position, it sucks. It's not going to be fun, but it won't hurt as much.
And that's the other part of this, too. You know, Stafford may play 15 games, but if one of the games he misses is one of the division games against the Niners, like that, it may come down to that. That could be the deciding factor in the NFC West. So it's yet another thing that we are loading onto the pile of intrigue that this season is going to be. The Matthew Stafford situation with the Rams, I will be keeping my eye on it for sure. Foot with the super chat. Thank you so much, Foot. We appreciate it. He says, he or she, I should say, says, you can also win a lot of games with Jimmy, and McVay is arguably a better coach than Kyle. I think this just makes the Rams on par, but not the 49ers the clear favorite. Yeah, you can win a lot of games with Jimmy if you have elite defense and specialty and good special teams, and the other phases of your offense are really good. You don't have to tell anybody in San Francisco that. We know what Jimmy Garoppolo's record was as a starting quarterback, but you tell me that the Niners are going to play the Rams and it's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo against Brock Purdy, I'm going to take Brock Purdy every time.
Yeah, well, you got to look at their roster too. Like, it's not quite the same offense that it was because of Cooper Kupp. Like, Puka doesn't do quite the same things that Cooper does. He's a little bit different. He's a little more of a physical receiver. It's not quite so many slants. He still runs a lot of the similar things, but I feel like this offense has become more Stafford dependent, meaning there's more downfield stuff than it used to be. And then you look at who they added. So you got Puka and you got Devontae Adams, right?
Yep.
So what are those two wide receivers, kind of, especially Devontae, known for? Contested catches. What do we know about Jimmy? He's scared to throw into coverage. So, like, I just can't see, like, I would say, I forgot to mention, like, both those wide receivers, I would say the type of style that they are is a timing thing. You got to really know each other between quarterback and wide receiver, especially Devontae Adams, who kind of is one of the best route runners ever, but he's unorthodox. He has his own way of doing it. That is something that the backup is going to struggle with. He's not going to have quite the same timing, quite the same relationship with those wide receivers if he has to step in. And then on top of it, you have somebody like Devontae Adams who's rarely wide open. Like his separation numbers are nowhere near elite, really. It's the fact that he can win jump balls and he always gets he always gets just past his guy. Well, it takes a quarterback willing to take risks, and Jimmy, at least in the end of his time with the 49ers, was scared. He was scared of taking those risks. So I don't see it as a good match. I don't see Jimmy as being a good match with the wide receivers they have.
I would not want Jimmy Garoppolo as my quarterback for any amount of time. Just because you can win a game with a guy doesn't mean you would want that guy to be behind the wheel. Yeah, we'll see how it goes for the Rams, but definitely, for me, if I were a Rams fan, I would have major agita at this point. Now, let's move on to what's going to happen tomorrow, 11, because today the Niners are just going to have a walkthrough, and I'm sure it'll be a very easy practice for them. But tomorrow, they are going to have joint practices against the Denver Broncos. And we know, and Kyle just said it this week, he values the joint practices way more than the games. We know it's important to him. What do you want to see out of these joint practices?
I want to hear the rookies are winning matchups. Like I want to see West. Oh, he got into the backfield and made a big stop, or something like that. I want to see. Oh, Williams would have had a sack there if they were truly tackling the quarterback, or something along those lines. That's what I mainly want to see out of the joint practices. Hearing Nick Bosa would be sacked, don't care. Like we know what he is. You know what I mean? I want to see the players that we're counting on having their name put in because they did something. I want to see, D Winters is everywhere. You know what I mean? D Winters with a bunch of stops today, or something like that. I don't care nearly as much about the negative in terms of like, oh, the Broncos had a huge pass there. You know what I mean? I don't care so much about that as I do. I want to see specific players having their name brought up because they made a kind of splash play.
I feel like you and I approach this stuff with a more skeptical eye than the average fan. And I think for both of us, we're like, oh, we hear people are doing well in training camp. Okay, great. Right. Like we don't take it as gospel. Certainly it's never a bad thing to hear somebody's doing well in training camp, but we want to see it. Before we believe it, we need to see it. And what this joint practice to me represents is the first sort of box to check. All right, great. You're doing well in training camp. Now let's see how you do against people that aren't your team. When you do it, can you do it against a scheme that you don't see every single day? Can you do it against, in this case, a really good Denver Broncos team, a Denver Broncos team with an excellent defense and an offensive line that I think will be a good test for a lot of these rookie defensive linemen. So it's just the next box to check for me, but that's absolutely one of the things I had written down. Can CJ West and Michael Williams and hopefully Alfred Collins, who seems to be coming along a little bit slower than those other two guys, can they do it against other professional players in a game-like situation? That's the number one on my list, other than stay healthy, which is, of course, a given for any football activity.
Yeah, and I would pair it going into the preseason game against the Broncos as well. Does their name get brought up to where they won a matchup, and then you see it on the field in the preseason game? Because that means, all right, this guy, it wasn't just he threw the guy off and it was the offensive lineman hasn't seen, West make that, his bull rush, which is what everybody's talking about. It's not just that they were a little not prepared for how good or how quick he gets into it or where he hits you with the bull rush. And once they saw it and they knew that's what he does, they shut him down in the game. If he is able to do that in the joint practices and then do that in the preseason, that's a sign of, okay, that might be a difference maker of an ability that even though people know it's coming, they still can't stop
it. That's the best kind of thing. And, hopefully these Niners rookies have a little of that in them. That's like bleep you skill, right? Like, yeah, this is what I do. Brace yourself because it's coming and you can't stop it. And, CJ West has been looking good. Michael Williams has been getting a lot of love. And Upton Stout, another guy who, he is like rocketing up the charts. Broncos got a couple receivers. How does Upton Stout look against those guys? Upton's here to do two things: be sticky in man coverage and get your nose in there in the run game and be physical in the run game. I'm sure he's going to get plenty of opportunity to do it. I really want to see that because if he can, that is a huge boost to the 49ers because that would give the 49ers 3 really solid corners at worst, maybe even better than that, but let's just temper expectations. You would have Diamador Lenore, who's back at practice, Bernardo Green, who, yes, is injured right now, but he has looked good as a rookie. And then you get Upton Stout. There's not that many teams that have 3 really solid corners, and that'd be a nice feather in the cap for Saleh's defense.
And it would help out the safety situation as well. Your safeties can be a little bit worse if your front 4 get pressure frequently and your corners aren't constantly getting beat. I do want to say one thing I will also be looking for that's not rookie related is, does this Ricky Pearsall thing continue? He's been getting big plays and there's been a lot of success between him and Purdy. Purdy has talked about how, late in the season, he feels like he really hit his rhythm with Pearsall in terms of like understanding how he moves and timing and things like that? Do we see, every single day there's Pearsall got a big gain on that player or something like that? Because that would, I think, indicate, okay, he's really emerging here as the number one.
And Patrick Surtain is no joke, arguably the best corner in the league too. So they're going to match Pearsall up against him. They should, even if Pearsall gets cooked. Like, do it. Test, see where he is, and test the skill, and it'll make him a better player. I'm absolutely locked in on that because I feel like I've been so high on Ricky Pearsall. I have been telling people that he could be a number one wide receiver, that he can help ease some of the early season issues that they're going to have at wide receiver. And it seems like every practice, it's like Brock and Ricky and Brock, Pearsall and Purdy. Here we go. Pearsall and Purdy sounds like a law firm, by the way, when I say it out loud. But it'll be so much more real if they can do it against Denver, especially Denver, a really, really good defense, probably better than any defense in the NFC West, I think. And that's not to slight the Rams or anyone else. I just think Denver's defense is really freaking good. So Pearsall is absolutely a guy that needs to shine this week, and hopefully he does. And even a guy like Jordan Watkins, right? Like, he's been getting some praise. Again, do it against Denver, and I'll be a lot more convinced than just, the occasional Matt Barrows note. Barrows seems to be high on Watkins, maybe a little higher than most. But he's another guy that has something to prove going into tomorrow's practice.
I think the best way to sum up the Pearsall is to actually take it into the fantasy football realm. Because I had this thought the other day, because I'm starting, I have a draft here in 5 days.
5 days?
Yeah, it's a family league, and literally every single weekend, multiple people had something. So we ended up having to do like a weekday in the middle of the month that everybody was willing to sacrifice sleep going to work the next day. Anyways, I was thinking about it. I was like, what wide receiver would I own, or is there one from the 49ers? Like, I don't overdraft for my team, but if I get to the point where, like, okay, this is about the value, then, and I'm going, okay, he's kind of equal to this guy, that it will be a tiebreaker where I take the Niners guy. And I thought to myself, like, I don't see myself owning Ayuk because I don't like injury risks. I don't like drafting guys and saying, all right, he's somebody I can stash for 5 weeks, and then when he returns, because they almost never return and immediately are back to form of dominating. So I don't care to do those risks. Jennings, I don't care because the upside's not there. I don't see him having this crazy upside. Last year is his upside, and that's not something I'm willing to draft in fantasy. I would rather take a super deep sleeper that has the chance of turning into a 1,200-yard receiver than a Jennings. But Pearsall, I think I would draft at some point. I haven't quite figured out where I would be willing to take him, but I think he's the only 49ers wide receiver that I would be willing to own on my team.
Michelle and I did a full 49ers fantasy preview a couple weeks ago. That's up on the YouTube channel. You can go and check that out. Not now, of course.
This is our time.
Thank you. But she was high on Pearsall as well in terms of Niners wide receivers for all the reasons you talked about. I really do think he could get 1,200 yards. He's got to stay healthy, obviously, but he's going to have the opportunity, and I think he could have a similar usage to what Brandon Ayuk was in 2023, where he doesn't necessarily get 150 targets, but he's getting chunk plays deep down the field. Remember, Ayuk averaged, 18, 19 yards per catch that year, and was mad that it wasn't higher because Sam Darnold mucked it up in the last week of the season, which is hilarious. But I think that's what they envision for Pearsall and how they can use Pearsall. So again, he's got to check the box this week against Denver. By the way, we mentioned the injuries. I should throw it up. This is a list, if you're watching on the stream, of everybody that didn't practice yesterday. Bosa continues to not be practicing. That's something to keep an eye on, because Kyle was specifically asked if he has an injury, and he said no, but he's not been practicing with the team for a couple days, so we'll have to see on that. Green, Jennings, we know about. Cowing, we know about. Jair Brown aggravated the ankle that he had surgery on in the offseason. That doesn't make me feel good. Garendo is going to be out a few weeks. Kyle Juszczyk's Achilles got stepped on. Kevin Givens' pec is going to keep him out for a huge chunk of this season, which is not fun. And Sam Okuano and Evan Anderson as well. So it's quite the list for August 6th.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good, but it's not as bad as it seems, I would say. I think the names on it kind of scare you, and that's where I would kind of put myself. I'm a little scared,
Hmm.
but other than the Givens one, none of these are like, oh, that guy's gone. You can't count on that guy at all. You already know that guy's gone and going to be going on IR. We don't really have those. So it's something I'm scared by, but not something that I'm going, well, that really sucks. Our season's taking a hit.
To this point, luckily, we have not had really any crippling injuries, and some teams
That
have.
we know of. I mean, they could be
Right.
lying.
That's true. But like some teams around the league have people have gone down with Achilles and ACL tears. We haven't seen those. But there's always stuff that just scares me. Like when I saw Michael Williams miss practice with an ankle injury, and then we find out it was the exact same ankle that was bothering him last year at Georgia. Now he's back, he's practicing, so yay. But man, I sometimes I see these reports come in, and then I pucker a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it right now. It's not that um, things are much worse and that this season, ooh, I don't know if the Niners are going to be able to win the division. It's not something that I would say I'm looking at it as saying this is affecting the regular season. And that's kind of where it's like, I don't like all the injuries. I'm scared they're going to linger. I'm scared they're going to be ones that like people don't make it back for. But at this point, I don't think the regular season is affected in any kind of big way.
Right. And that's ultimately the target that you're going for. That's why we want these guys to get out of this joint practice. Kyle Shanahan mentioned he likes having only one joint practice instead of two, which previous years they had done two. But he said basically the second day, everybody just wants to fight. And
Yeah.
that's obviously not ideal. So one joint practice, hopefully it eases the strain on everybody. Another thing I wanted to see is like Colton McKivitz is a guy that's been getting a lot of love too. Like he looks better. He talked a lot yesterday about all the training he did. He knows he's in a contract year. And if he has a good year like he did last year, he's going to get a bag from somebody. So he has every incentive to ball out. He's looked pretty good. Denver's defensive line is excellent. How does Colton McKivitz look against, real actual competition and not, some of the other defensive linemen on the Niners who are, let's just say, not as established as some of the guys Denver has?
It is interesting. McKivitz has been getting a lot of praise, and it's either he has taken a leap forward and is going to be, I would say, based on the reports, like borderline Pro Bowl. Like he's not going to be in the, nobody's going to look at him and go, oh, that's the elite right tackle. You know what I mean? But can he get to that borderline Pro Bowl level, or is he going to end up being the training camp hero this season? Because there isn't an obvious one right now. There is no obvious one where like there's just this person that everybody's talking about how great they are and in the best shape of their life, and and you're just looking at it going, this guy probably won't even make the team. What are you talking about?
Well, Jason and I picked some a couple weeks ago. He picked Isaiah Nayer, and then like the next day, Nayer had that catch at practice, and he was like, "Look, it's happening." And I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think I picked D Winters, who has another guy. He has been getting crazy. He has locked down the linebacker spot next to Fred
Yeah.
Warner. Like the Niners aren't even really hiding it or anything. He was my pick, I think, for training camp hero, but he's another guy too this week against Denver. Something to prove. Check the box for me because I got to believe it when I see it. Like, I would not be shocked at all if we heard, oh, D Winters leaves joint practice with the Broncos, a shoulder stinger or whatever it is, and then he's back at practice the next day because that's been his whole career.
Yeah, his whole career is he plays really well. He kind of flashes the speed that he has, and then he's hurt within 10 plays. So if he can stay healthy, I don't think he's going to give up that position. I think he will be the second guy, but I think that was the case last year. I think D Winters would have been the guy starting when Greenlaw was out if he could have stayed healthy.
Yeah, I agree too. But he couldn't end up beating out Devondre Campbell, which is, yeah, that's, you got to stay on the field to be able to do that. So that's another thing that we'll keep our eye on. And last thing, I haven't talked to you about this, so I don't know how you feel about this, Levin. What's Jake Moody going to do? He doesn't have competition in camp anymore. They decided that the competition was over. He didn't win the competition, but somehow he won the job. I don't understand it. Jake Moody is here. What are your thoughts on Greg Joseph getting the boot?
less than ideal, and I think even Shanahan would agree with that because they were forced to due to all the people that are out of practice. They needed to get some bodies in, and I think the way it had been going was Joseph better than Moody? Possibly, but it was very, very close and essentially even. And at this point, I think it was safe to assume one of them was not going to separate the other in practices. Now, if Moody goes out and struggles in preseason, misses a couple kicks, they can probably easily go get Greg Joseph because he's probably not going to end up anywhere. Teams don't tend to bring in kickers midway through training camp. So I think it was one of those things that we need bodies. What position can we make a decision on without it being that detrimental? And that was one of the positions that we can let Joseph go. At this point, we think they're even, and it's just whether or not in game situations that Moody loses his confidence again, that the nerves get him again,
Mhm.
which the special teams coordinator did mention that what he saw out of Moody was an incredibly talented guy who had lost his confidence a little bit. So if Moody is struggling and it's clear that his confidence once he got into the games is still a problem, they can just make the swap right back.
I don't understand the process. You had a kicking competition. You called it a kicking competition. Your special teams coordinator said he specifically structured it so they have to compete against each other. And then you disregard the results of that competition before they even play a preseason game. And I get it. There was a roster crunch. Okay, fine. That's the bigger issue is that once again, they're so hurt that they can't even hold competitions for positions. But if they had cut Jake Moody, excuse me, and just kept Greg Joseph, I wouldn't say boo about it. Like, yep, he was better in the competition. Moody missed 10 field goals last year. He has done nothing to earn this scholarship that he apparently has, in the words of Tim Kawakami. But yet, here we are. I know Kyle talked about, well, you're always competing against everybody that's out there. Well, he missed 10 kicks last year and didn't get cut. So is he really competing against everybody that's out there? Or does Kyle really just not give a crap about special teams and just made a decision and doesn't want to ever think about kickers ever again?
You see, and this is why I preferred the route that the Niners had been going for 15 years. They signed the older veteran who was proven and you knew what you were getting. They might not quite be at their prime anymore, but they're still very good. It was safe, reliable. They did that with a handful of different kickers. They did that with Akers, and Akers set the field goal record in the season. Now the wheels fell off very quickly with David Akers, but they did it with I'm forgetting some of them. I know they brought in Joe Nedney at one point.
Yes.
Obviously, they had Gold here for quite a while. Those were all like aging veterans that entered into like age 32, 33, and their original team decided to move on. So they went ahead and signed him as a free agent. Yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but kicking is so incredibly important. I'm willing to spend that little bit of extra because it's kind of like the fullback situation that I talked about the other week. That it's so inexpensive. The difference between an expensive one and an inexpensive one that it's okay to kind of spend that little bit of extra. It's okay to have that luxury because you're talking about an extra million or two a year. It
Mhm.
doesn't really affect things in the grand scheme of things. So go ahead and get the guy that you know what the commodity is. Phil Dawson was the one I remembered while I was talking. That was the one that I was forgetting that was here for quite some time.
Phil, man, you're taking me down memory lane when it comes to 49ers
But
kickers.
that's what they did like year after year after year. We did not have a young kicker for a
Right.
long time on the 49ers. It was we're going to sign a veteran. And when that guy hits age 37, 38, and it's clear that the wheels are starting to fall off, we'll go get whatever the other veteran is that's now coming onto the market that's in a similar situation.
Benali says Kyle's ending every drive with a field goal on Saturday and no one is throwing a
I
touchdown.
want that. That's what I don't. If you have a kicking competition or a question mark at the kicker position,
Mm-hmm.
do that. Take
Yeah.
field goals because I think that also simulates the pressure a little bit. Like, hey, the team is willingly giving up on second down here just for me to make this kick. Boy, if I miss this, that looks really bad. Like, I feel like that adds pressure. It's able to simulate real game kind of situation to a degree.
This will be probably the only time where I will not be screaming and howling for the 49ers to go for it on fourth down. It will be a different experience for me watching. Sean Turner says they're going to add a kicker on Sunday, and then you guys will go, oh, okay, I get it. It's just roster maneuvering. Great. If they add a kicker on Sunday, awesome. I would love if they did it, but I don't think they're going to do it. They'd cut Greg Joseph because they didn't have enough healthy bodies. You think the Niners are going to get healthier as we go along through the preseason, that they're suddenly going to be able to add another kicker? I don't think so. I think they never wanted Jake Moody gone. I think that they want to be right for taking him in the third round. And so he was so bad last year after he came back from the injury that they were like, well, we got to do something. We can't just keep him unchallenged on the roster. So they signed a veteran guy. They had him kick, and Moody kept it close enough to where they could pick their original choice. Kind of like the Sam Darnold, Trey Lance situation from, 2023. Just, throwing that out there. This is kind of what they do in these quote unquote competitions.
I think Joseph was brought in more as insurance than true competition. Okay, Moody confidence was kind of lost at the end of the season. We need to have a backup plan in case Moody shows up and is just toasted. You know what I mean? Just gone. He doesn't have the mental ability to keep it together anymore. And that's why Joseph was here. I think if Moody was bad, then Joseph would get the job. But it was kind of, as long as Moody looks like his normal self and isn't still being affected by last year, Joseph didn't have a chance.
I will say, I don't know if you read the article about all the mechanical changes that Jake Moody has made. It was a fascinating article. I give Jake Moody credit for being open and talking about all this stuff. And essentially, if you didn't read it, I'll boil it down for you. Jake Moody has essentially he shortened his approach to kicking the ball by one step. And his rationale for that is the more steps you have, the more chances there are for something to go wrong, for you to be misaligned, for things to just not be perfect. So if you shorten your approach, it's easier for you to stay consistent. And that does make sense to me. I don't have any kicking expertise, but in theory, I get it, right? Like the shorter your swing, essentially, the less chance you have to screw something up. Now, the downside, as Moody pointed out, is you're not able to kick the ball as far. So there is, positives and negatives to everything. But I believe conceptually, I believe that might help Jake Moody. I don't know that it's going to. Obviously, we need to see it. But what he was saying at least made sense to me as something that could possibly help. He's not just going into this season hoping.
Yeah, it's something that's capable for kickers who have extra power, basically. Like Robbie Gould, if he were to shorten his kicks when he was already towards the end, or to go back to one of the Andersons towards the end of their career where they were struggling to make like 45-yard field goals, they wouldn't be able to then shorten it from, one step from their normal, and then because they would not be able to make 40-yard kicks. He has enough power. I think Moody on the high end could probably hit close to 60 yards. So shortening his kick might lower him into the lower or mid 50 range, which is still plenty enough, but make him more accurate. It is 100% true, because it's one of those things, like if you are just a centimeter off on your first step from where you should be on your trajectory, that centimeter becomes, an inch by the time you reach the ball, because every step, the margin for error grows. And if you're off on the first one, you'll be even more off on the next step. And that's kind of the philosophy of it. I will say, I think it's kind of a difficult thing to do, because he is somebody that is probably well over 10,000 kicks in his career when you're talking about practice and everything else. So he has a lot of muscle memory, and it's just the natural feel. I'm trying to think of the right way to put it. There is kind of like a natural cadence your body has in terms of kicking, like
muscle memory.
Yeah, well, not necessarily muscle memory, but it's your brain is used to step, kick, and it just kind of knows that rhythm. And when instead of it being like step, kick, you're going step, kick, it changes that natural cadence and rhythm within your own body. And I think that's hard to change when you're this far into it.
He claims that he's done enough practice that actually going back to the 3-step would feel awkward to him. Maybe he has. I don't literally.
Maybe he has, but I mean, it is similar to like throwing a football. Some quarterbacks want, like an extra hitch when they go to step forward into a throw, and that's what's natural to them. And then they got to try to break themselves of that, or you know what I mean? Or like when they go to throw, they have a common one that we see of young quarterbacks is they hold the ball low and then they're trying to bring it up high as they go to throw. And that's just extra movement that can throw off their throwing aim. And so they try to get them to keep it high for one, fumbling reasons, but two, it's a quicker, faster release that can be more accurate. It's kind of similar to that where like everybody kind of has their natural motion that they like to gather the ball as they're going to throw.
I will be like locked in on Saturday. I can't wait to watch Jake Moody kick field goals. I'm not going to lie. And the other part of it too, that no one's talking about that much, and that the Niners, at least to this point, as far as I know, have not practiced, is the kickoff. Like kickoffs are going to matter. You have to land the ball in a certain zone. If you don't, there are penalties that give the other team good field position. Whoever kicks for the 49ers on kickoffs has to be able to do that. And I'm going to be watching kickoffs too, because, Jake was not always reliable on the kickoff either.
I mean, it's nothing new. It's been this way for the last few years. You have to pay attention to 49ers special teams because they are so bad in all aspects. So I'll be really interested to see. I will say I really liked the comments that the special team coordinator made when he was talking about Moody and building confidence. I was like, boy, what struck me when I was reading his interview was like, that really sounds like they got the right guy for the job this time. Somebody that's trying to build the confidence and not try to necessarily be a tactician, maybe, like, oh, I really want somebody that can hit this, little spot. You're not necessarily talking kicking. I'm just talking about overall special teams. I think maybe they were laser focused on like a lot of the like small things to try to get the big thing to be good rather than just like build people's confidence and trust that when they're confident, they'll do the right thing.
The line he said that I love the most was, I want to install the belief that it's not a punishment to play special teams, because the head coach looks at it like a punishment. Like the head coach does not have respect for special teams. And at least Brant Boyer is like, hey, we're here. We're a legitimate part of this team. And that's the attitude you have to have. I hate Kyle's attitude towards special teams. It drives me nuts because if people know that he's basically like, whatever, just don't screw it up. Like if the head coach doesn't care about it, why should the players? So I like the fact that Brant Boyer is going to be in there and essentially saying like, hey, this is not, football Siberia here. We're a legitimate part of this team and we've got to be on our stuff.
Yeah, you need the Tony Montana squad and things like that. Like you need to build a culture of like, this is the place to be.
And they're going to need the young players to contribute on special teams, and it has to be better. It has to be better than last year. It was a dumpster fire, and it cost this team games, and not just because of Jake Moody, because of kickoff coverage, because of punt coverage. We started the show talking about the Rams. The first game against the Rams, they screwed up on a punt that put the Rams in good field position to go steal that game at the end. Like it's hidden yardage, but it counts, man. And they have to be better doing it. And I hope that they will be. And it's just one more thing to tack on to Saturday night watching. And one more thing. And I haven't asked you this. Are you going to join for the instant reaction after the first preseason game on Saturday?
No, I'll be at work.
Oh, boo. Well, I'll be there. I can't. That is going to be so much.
You can't get after me because I'm literally using vacation this year to be able to do the regular season games. So,
yes.
But yeah, I wasn't making it a priority for the preseason.
Benali says, you guys aren't Richard Hightower fans? No, I was not a Hightower fan. Absolutely.
No. The only Hightower that I can remember being a fan of is the Police Academy Hightower character. That's what I think of. Every time I hear Hightower, that's who I think of.
That's a deep cut right there. Good job by you. Fans of a certain age know the Police Academy movies. Well done, Levin. A couple other things I want to get to here before we call it a show. One of which pertains to the 49ers, one of which is a bigger league issue, but it's something Levin and I have talked about in the past. First up, congratulations Guy Haberman, who was officially announced as the replacement for Greg Papa, who, of course, is taking this season off for cancer treatments, and we wish Greg all the best. But congratulations, Guy. He's going to be on the TV broadcasts of the preseason games, and I think it was a damn good choice by the 49ers.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I know you threw it out there right away as somebody that was a logical replacement, and they went with him. So it is, I think, the first person that deserved the opportunity to make this happen. I think it's a little bit of a trial because, as you say, that he's filling in for the preseason game, so they haven't quite said he's filling in for the whole season.
Mm-hmm. I would not be shocked at all if it was a trial, but I also think he could end up very easily with the KMBR gig doing the games on the radio. Number one, because it's not like there's just this bunch of guys just sitting around waiting for the opportunity. Like a lot of the guys that have already lined up their gigs for the fall.
Yeah.
So I think it's a damn good choice. I'm really looking forward to it. I know Guy posted something in response. Let me see if I could pull that up really quick because he when the Niners announced it, he didn't say anything, but I think he talked about it this morning. Oh, there it is. Okay, look at how fast I got that. What a professional I am. Guy said, can't describe what it means to fill in for this team, or for this man with this team. Keep sending love and support to Greg until we are all lucky enough to have him back. I know my son was legitimately bummed because he loves the San Francisco that Papa usually does. And obviously we're not going to get that this year. And as much as I was a Ted Robinson fan, I did get used to Greg Papa's style. And so it's going to be weird hearing somebody different this year.
So you listen to the radio broadcast when you're watching, or what?
Usually when I rewatch the game, I'll listen to the radio broadcast or as much of it as I can. You know me, I'm an old radio guy, man. That's my jam.
I was gonna say, like, I got nothing against it, and I wish that somebody would create like an app that uses AI so that it's perfectly accurate to see what's happening on the TV stream and match the radio, because it's too much of a hassle for me to try to get it matched up and keep it matched up throughout the broadcast. I wish somebody would create something that like automatically does that, because that's how I would listen to a game, is the radio broadcast. But with the difficulty of that, I don't think I've listened to a radio broadcast in years.
The MLB app on my Xbox used to do that perfectly. It was awesome. You could choose your audio and choose your video feeds and everything. And you used to be able to watch the TV of your team and then listen to the radio. And they did sync it up. Like, it wasn't always 100% synced up, but it was really damn, like, easily close enough for you to be able to watch the game and enjoy it. And it was like the best feature ever. I don't know if
I know it exists because NFL Game Pass in the preseason had that 1 year. I want to say it was maybe 4 years ago. In the preseason, you could click and it would say, what do you want to listen to? And it had the TV and it had the radio for each team. And you could pick which one you wanted to have playing while you watched the game. And I remember only seeing it for like 1 week, one game. And I think they realized, hold on, we don't want that out there. That would be something that's too popular and people would demand having it all the time.
We can't do that. It would bring too many people.
We can't serve our consumers because we got to get people in the stands. I still don't understand why that is a thing, by the way. Like, I understand you want people in the stands, but where do they make their money? Why is the NFL and the NBA and all these capable of having their budgets grow so crazy high so rapidly? It's all the TV contracts. So maybe realize that the TV is the thing that you want to make the best, and not keep saying, we got to keep making TV not advanced so that people still show up to the stadium.
Speaking of that, a little other thing happened yesterday. Not so little, but something else happened yesterday, and that was ESPN acquiring the NFL Network. It had been sort of talked about. It is not official because it still has to be approved by the FCC, but they announced it yesterday, and that is ESPN acquires NFL Network, and in exchange, NFL Network gets 10% of ESPN. And I thought that Mike Florio made a good point in his article about it on ProFootballTalk.com, which is, if NFL Network had just sold, if the NFL had just sold NFL Network, that would be revenue coming into the league. they would have to split that with the players. But because they're
Yeah.
getting this 10% stake in ESPN, it's sort of a workaround. Whereas, hey, that doesn't factor into the revenue, but yet the NFL is going to make money because they now own 10% of ESPN.
I mean, it should factor into revenue because they will have to get. It's not like they get 10% of ESPN and they just never sell it or they never get revenue from them. You know what I mean? They would have to get some kind of money unless they're just going to sit on the stock and they consider that good enough. You know what I mean? But and that stock would be Disney stock. But I would imagine they have to get some type of the profits sent their way each year. But let's just call it what it is. This is a terrible, shitty deal for the fans and consumers because it means one, you lose a certain level of integrity with this happening because ESPN, I mean, I think we were already there and most people kind of already knew it, but they're not a trusted source anymore in terms of being fair and objective. The NFL literally owns 10% of them. There is a conflict of interest there. So, like, to me, I think they're underestimating to a certain extent how this affects both sides. I think the programming of the NFL network will get worse. Probably not year one, but we know how ESPN works. And it's not just an ESPN thing, to be fair, it is all media works. And they will do everything they can to shrink the NFL network as much as possible while maximizing profits. So it's no longer a like service of the league to, make them popular. It like the NFL network was originally created for. It is now 100% a media thing and it has to be all about profits. So I think that changes the programming aspect of the NFL network while it also I think changes ESPN to a certain degree because now even though they were unlikely to do it, they are even more unlikely to ever be critical of the NFL. And I think that hurts things. And that's without getting into the whole aspect of ESPN shows a lot of your true fans can't stand anymore because they've gone so deep into the we got to be controversial and say crazy things with Stephen A. Smith that that type of programming is the ESPN signature now, and that's going to bleed into the NFL network. And I don't know about you, but I know how I kind of treated things. I knew the NFL network was not going to be necessarily fair and balanced. They were always going to side, make things good for the league. But in terms of news and how they talked about the game, they were a little more analytical and it was a little bit more for like the big fans of football and not the people just looking for the shock jocks and things like that. So I'll be honest, I haven't watched ESPN in years, but I would be listening and watching NFL Network when I wanted my football stuff.
This is not what's best for the fans. They can try and spin it like it is. They don't do these deals because they're looking to improve the fan experience. They do it because they're looking to make money for shareholders. So I agree with you. Goodell was on ESPN today talking about red zone's not going to change. And we're going to produce it out of this building. I guarantee you it's going to change. It might not change that much this year, but it's going to change.
Because they can save money, and we're talking about ESPN, can save money by bringing it to their studios. Why maintain a second place when you can bring it all into one place? It's cheaper.
Well, and they already have an LA. ESPN already has, like, it's not even just Bristol. Like, they've already got one.
Right.
It's going to change. It's amazing, honestly, looking back that we got commercial-free red zone for as long as we did. Because I don't know when it started, but it's been over a decade now, right? When did the red zone channel start?
It is a little bit ironic. I would love to get the true honesty from Rich Eisen because like NFL Network started by like them kind of stealing SportsCenter guy and stealing other ESPN reporters. That's kind of how NFL launched. The NFL Network launched. Big Ten did the same thing. All the original hosts of the Big Ten Network were ESPN SportsCenter and news reporters from ESPN. Now they're back to being working for ESPN. So that's kind of like an interesting thing. And I wonder if Rich Eisen views it as full circle, where he started at ESPN, he went to NFL Network, now he's back at ESPN and it's a full circle thing, or if he views it as, well, hang on here, I left kind of I know he's always been positive about ESPN, but I wonder his true thoughts on whether he's like, I don't want to be back under those people because they're going to make me do things that I didn't have to do with the NFL Network.
Well, his show is going on ESPN radio also.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's back. It's not just the NFL acquiring NFL Network stuff. Like, he's literally going to be on ESPN. He's like the centerpiece of their lineup now. So, yeah, the Rich Eyes and ESPN roots are back. Time is a flat circle, apparently, and that is a thing that is happening. So, yeah, that's the news. I know Michelle, we talked about it on the show. She's worried that she might not have a job. She's a researcher for NFL Network. Well, ESPN has a whole stats and information department. So do they need to keep the NFL Network researchers? We don't know. They don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, we're wishing her the best. We love Michelle, and we don't want to see anybody lose their job, especially someone we love as much as Michelle. So there's a lot up in the air right now. But I agree with you. I don't think it's good for the fans. I don't like the messy relationship now with does ESPN report honestly on the NFL? I mean, even like this most recent thing with the NFLPA, ESPN didn't say anything about that until Pablo Torre and Mike Florio started kicking ass and doing incredible investigative research. And then, to their credit, ESPN did do some of their own, but they didn't do that until Pablo Torre stepped up and did that. You think they're going to do more of that now? No chance.
No, and that's what I was saying. Like, for most people, I think we already viewed it as ESPN was a biased source when it came to the NFL. You know, they're not quite the same with it, Major League Baseball and other things, but their relationship with the NFL, I think, is always been, or not always, since the early 2000s has been different. And there's always been a blurring of the line a little bit. And that blurring of the line is no longer blurred. The line is gone.
Johnny Dell says, my biggest concern is that ESPN will try and turn NFL Network into their hot take cable news style shows. Yep. That's exactly what you said, Levin, and I agree.
I don't remember where I read it, but somebody said, if I ever see Stephen A. Smith on NFL Network, I'm going to be pissed. And I will be right there with you.
No McAfee and no Stephen A. Smith on Red. We don't, never, no, just leave it alone. It's perfect. It is perfect the way it is. Just do nothing.
But if they do that and you hate it, you can come to us for 49ers news source.
That's right. And honestly, like, it's more important than ever to find independent news sources and follow them because, well, first of all, I'm under contract technically with ESPN right now, and I've been saying everything I've been saying. So, I'm not going to pull any punches. And especially when it comes to the 49ers, we don't have any ties to the team or the organization. So we don't care if what we say makes them mad at all. Because if it's the truth, we're going to say it. Sean Turner, this is a weird take. I don't get Red Zone. I just put up 2 TVs with 4 games each. Why switch them when you can just watch them all at the same time? Well, not everybody has that kind of television setup, Sean. That's the point of Red Zone, is that you don't necessarily need that, is that they show you all the stuff. I maintain, and by the way, Red Zone is 15 years old. I looked it up. I maintain that Red Zone is the second greatest sports invention of my entire life. I will give you 3 guesses as to what the greatest sports invention of our lifetime is.
I guarantee I know what the greatest sports invention of our life. Well, not our lifetime. Never mind. That was before our lifetime. I was going to say TV, because without TV, like, the NFL sports would not be nearly what it is. But our lifetime. That's an interesting one because video game.
It's obvious when you think about it. It's not sports video games. That's guess 1.
I mean, are you talking YouTube?
Nope. That's guess 2.
Without YouTube and podcasts, you'd have a completely different life right now.
That's true. But it's something that you can't imagine watching an NFL game without.
The little line of first down?
Yep. The yellow first down line is the greatest sports invention of my lifetime. It is perfect and beautiful and glorious. Other than that, it's Red Zone. That's it. Those are the 2 best ones.
Did I ever tell you about, like, I remember, so when that line was first becoming, like, popular and it was becoming a must-have, because there was I want to say, like, close to a decade period of time where it was like some games would have it and some games wouldn't. You could watch college football and the first game you're watching, there is no line. You don't know where the first down is. And then the second game would have it. And the reason for that was, and this is what the article went into, there was a guy that invented the capability of using satellites to put that on the screen, and he would sell it. And this was probably around like 2000 that I read this. He would sell the rights to use it for a game for like $10,000 a game. And so it had to be a big enough game with enough fans that were going to be watching for whatever network the game was on to be willing to spend the money to get that downline. And then at some point he sold his rights to that invention of, it probably was more like an algorithm that was patented that made it possible. At some point he sold it and now it's everywhere. But there was a period in time where there was one guy that controlled whether or not you got to have that line, and he was making tons of money.
According to PBS, an article that I'm seeing from PBS, the first time the yellow line was used on television was September 27, 1998, during an ESPN broadcast of a game between the Ravens and the Bengals. And yeah, that's it. Best one of my lifetime. And I love it. I can't imagine watching a game without it. And I really hope that they don't mess with Red Zone too much, because I freaking, especially when the Niners are on their bye and we get to just sit there as regular fans and just enjoy, and they beam 8 hours of football directly into my eyeballs. I need it.
See, I kind of go the opposite way with the Red Zone. Do I watch the Red Zone? Yeah, I do. But I kind of wish it didn't exist, because when you're not watching the game and it's just flipping between the games, you lose the story.
Oh.
And so I kind of I try to stop myself from watching the Red Zone. I end up getting to it. If the game I'm watching gets boring, I'll end up just going there, or I'll go there during a commercial break of the game I'm watching and then kind of forget to go back and things like that. But I try to force myself to actually watch the whatever the biggest game is that's on. You do lose the story of the game. So it's a different experience. And I think it makes you almost less knowledgeable, because you miss a lot of the chit chat and the explaining of things that are about the strategy of the game. So for the younger fans, I think it's just like seeing highlights. Highlights don't tell the story. If all you do for a football fan watching is watch SportsCenter recap each game, that's not the same as having watched the game.
Yeah, but a SportsCenter recap is what? 30 seconds, 45 seconds at most. An NFL Red Zone version of a game is longer than that. You do miss some stuff because you're not watching the full broadcast. So by definition, there's stuff you are not seeing. I get that. But I can't watch every game with that level of detail on Sundays anyway, because they're all on at the same time. So by definition, I'm going to miss it.
I will say, so I have Sunday Ticket with YouTube TV, and it's something that DirecTV should have done a long time ago, and maybe they would still have Sunday Ticket if they did, not just sit on their hands and say, we're going to keep the same technology for 20 years and refuse to do anything because we have exclusive rights. But they now have, when you watch, they have, I forget what the name they have for it, but it's like Game Focus or something like that, and it'll split your screen up into 4 games.
Yeah.
And after the first couple of weeks, they just had their own, and they tried to have every mix and match possible, but it wasn't always possible when there were that many games.
Yeah.
And then maybe midway through the season, they made it possible to where you can customize your own. So you can pick the 4 games you want on the screen. So I tend to watch that a good bit. And you move the cursor over on your remote, and it will change the audio to that broadcast. So you just kind of go between, and you're able to watch the games.
That's pretty good too. That's what it should It's 2025. You should be able to have any combination of, if I have access to all the games, I should be able to put them anywhere on my screen that I want. I should be able to put them all on the screen at the same time if I want, and change the sizes of all of them. And come on now, what are we doing here? But anyway, that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Thank you everybody for watching this video. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. If this is your first time checking us out, thank you very much. We're here every single weekday, and pretty much going to be here every week, every day, actually. Once the season gets started, we're pretty much a 7-day-a-week operation. So subscribe, check us out, keep coming back. We are, in my opinion, the most informed, independent source of 49ers news out there. Other people.
And the best looking. Don't forget that one.
Okay, sure. When you got
now that you shaved, when you weren't shaved, it was a different story. But
oh, I see. I was going to say it's because of Steph Sanchez's hair, which is just immaculate at all times. But anyway, give us a chance. I promise you'll like what you see. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, everybody. Stay healthy in the joint practice, 49ers, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.